Okay guys, this is Lloyd Webb speaking. I'm just going to give you a few tips and tricks with regards to your demo system. Now, as you've probably guessed, a lot of this data is canned. It's not quite real-time live data, but still quite a lot we can get from it. And there's still a perfectly adequate demo that we can get from this data as well. So thought I'd spend the next 10 minutes just walking you through that. Okay, so first thing I would do, jumping into the dashboard, is, I would talk about what data we have on screen here and what the relevancy of that data is. One of the key kind of use cases, obviously, which we kind of assume sometimes, is that we want a complete asset discovery and inventory. And this is what we've done here by connecting into various different types of adapters. We've closed the amount of space in the environment for the customer that assets can hide. And so as we add more adapters, we close that white space where device assets and user assets can hide. So ultimately what we've done here is we've connected into a number of different adapters from McAfee to Tenable to Cisco Meraki to Forescout, Active Directory, etc., etc. And what we've done is we've gone and queried those devices via mostly API, and we've pulled back a couple of numbers here. So the numbers in brackets are the raw numbers that come from each of these adapters, okay? But what we do is when we take in each of these individual adapters, we actually deduplicate the data. So we actually come up with, the ultimate, clarified, deduplicated list of assets that exist in those systems. So whereas here McAfee, we've got 35,065. By the time we've deduplicated that, we've come up with 34,511. Of course, as we do that across each of the adapters, as you can see where there has been some deduplication, down here we get the total without deduplication, but ultimately what we're trying to arrive at is the number of uniquely identifiable devices in your environment. So here we've got 41,209. So that's where I would start in the conversation. Talk about these data sources that we've connected to, talk about the numbers that we've pulled from those data sources, and ultimately we've provided the customer here with a total unique asset inventory count of 41,209. So that's how we arrive at the devices that we've discovered. And of course, we're doing the same across user discovery. In your particular demo system, we're only connecting into Active Directory. Okay, so obviously this is the dashboard. There's not a huge amount on this dashboard at the moment. I did put a few things in here just to see, if we had some interesting versions of things that we could look at in this demo data, and we do actually have some Chrome versions that we can kind of dig into. Unfortunately, some of the agent versions are all pretty much the same here, as you can see. But as part of the demo, we can dig into what's installed and we can build queries around that. So we've spoken a little bit about the dashboard and what that's telling us. Over here we actually talk about the system life cycle. So this is when discoveries happen. And of course, now you could even talk about this data being updated on a regular basis. So there is a discovery schedule, okay, configured up in global settings. By default, it's now set to 12 hours. So this data is populated every 12 hours. So every 12 hours, we reach out to each one of those adapter sources, we pull back the data and we correlate it, deduplicate it, and aggregate it. And of course, we then kind of bring together the devices and the users to which we can build queries around to look for coverage gaps. So that's kind of just a quick high level of the dashboard. What I would then go and do is then go and talk about the volume of adapters that we have. And here, you can do kind of things like kind of adapter bingo. You could say, well, tell me, what do you use for your firewalls? Okay, you use some Palo Alto. Okay, what do you use for, for your current asset management system? All right, so you're using ServiceNow potentially. So you'd just start typing in the different adapters that they might be using. Ask them what what vulnerability management they're using. So they're using Tenable, they're using Qualys, whatever it is they're using for vulnerability management. So a little bit of kind of adapter bingo. And of course, don't be worried if there's adapters that don't exist. Please do tell them that our customers are, we create new adapters for customers all the time. We do that free of charge. So as long as the adapter provides some form of asset value to the overall system and to other customers, then there's a very good chance that we will create an adapter for it. So, at the moment, current set of play is around 250. I'm sure, in the next couple of months, we'll easily have added 20, 30, 40 new adapters. So don't worry if there's one missing, but there's a very good chance all the core ones that the customer is using are going to be already in place. Ask them about their cloud. Ask them about their kind of, GCP or AWS. Ask them about their Microsoft, Azure and Azure AD and Microsoft Intune as well. So lots of different systems here that we can obviously connect into. But obviously what you want to do is talk in to the particular adapters that are configured here, and you could maybe dig into one, maybe talk about, what does an adapter tell us? So for example, if we click into here, click in add connection, effectively what an adapter tells us is, where something is, how we want to authenticate to it, what data is it that we're pulling. So under the covers, you can talk to the adapter, knowing what is the most valuable data to retrieve via this data source, and then ultimately how we translate and correlate that in the background. So where the system is that we're communicating to, how we authenticate to that system, what data we're pulling, and how do we map that and translate that into kind of our fields and our kind of data framework internally. And of course, here's a good opportunity to talk about, the types of credentials that you need and the types of access that you need. Each of these adapters, you can click on the help here and show them docs.axonius.com and show them what permissions you need. But the vast majority of the adapters, you can talk to how they only need a read-only account. Okay, so key thing is having line of sight from a firewall perspective, making sure the ports are open appropriately for the different adapters, and making sure that you have the proper privileges and credential for the system that you're connecting to. Okay, so you can talk about adapters, spend a few minutes on that. Then of course, the bulk of your demo is going to be in and around extracting useful information out of the query tool. Okay, so there are some key core use cases that we would want to talk to customers around. They might have their own use cases, but we have a standard set of use cases, which hopefully you've got the documentation for. But the key ones are things like agent coverage. Okay, so we'd want to query this data to show our agent coverage. And of course, what a lot of people will want to do is they'll want to know, how does their agent technology compare against the Active Directory, for example. So in here, we could probably say, well, let's maybe compare and contrast. What do we have in Active Directory and what do we also have in McAfee? But of course, ultimately, we want to know, what doesn't exist in McAfee. And of course, we've got 109 systems here in this data set that currently don't have McAfee installed. Okay, so that's a key, kind of use case that you want to prove. You also, possibly want to prove, show things like agent hygiene. So show different versions of agents. We can do that via installed software. The other one you probably want to do is show potentially broken agents. Okay, so not only do we want to look for what's seen by Active Directory, what's seen by McAfee, we also want to know when they were seen in the network. So let's maybe show let's show the systems that have been seen by something in the last one day. But what we also want to do is maybe have a look at what McAfee has seen in the last, say, 30 days, or not in the last 30 days, rather. Because really what we want to find out is, do we have any systems that haven't communicated with the McAfee EPO console, and they're potentially broken? So that using that last seen field in your query tool can show you potentially broken agents. Of course, that's a core use case that that people are going to want to know about when it comes to identifying risk inside their environment. So let's see what else can we do here with this query tool and with this data set. So what we also probably want to do, coverage, right? So let's clear. Let's show what is in AWS, for example. Okay, so we've got 2,849 devices in AWS. What might also be interesting, of course, is to show which of those systems also have McAfee or which of those systems don't have McAfee. But one of the key things that people want to know about their system is, are they getting regular vulnerability scans? So what systems do I have in my cloud environment that are not getting a regular vulnerability scan? So again, just using the Tenable data, we can compare and contrast the AWS data. So here we've got 724 devices that are not getting a Tenable scan. What we could also maybe even try and look at is, do they all have McAfee? No. So there's 195 devices that don't have my endpoint capability and also have not been scanned by Tenable, okay, Security Center. So again, another use case that you could show in the demo. And then, maybe just some general kind of looking around the data. Maybe you want to show things like, well, maybe show me all my Windows systems, for example, in my data. Maybe show me all my Windows systems that have been last seen in the last week. So there we go. There's my Windows system. Maybe what I also want to do is maybe look for a certain type of Windows system. Maybe I want to look for, do I have any 2008? Using the full OS string, I don't. Do I have any 2012? Nope. Do I have any Windows 10? Which I'm sure I probably do have some Windows 10. So let's just check that out. Windows 10. So, and now would be a good point to actually show them how you can filter this data even further. So when you're searching through the data, what you want to make sure is that you actually are displaying as a column things that you're looking for. So now let's put OS string in here. All right, so there we can see, we can see that we do have a number of Windows 10 Pro 64 bits. What you can also do, if you want to kind of go a little bit further, is you can actually, using, this is case sensitive, so you have to be a little bit careful. You can say, well, show me as a filter on this column, all the systems that are 64-bit, and this, again, this is case sensitive, so we have to be careful here. So if we hit not here, and then hit OK, it's going to filter out all those OS strings of Windows 10. Now, it would appear that we don't have a huge amount available to us outside of Windows 10, but that's fine. We've just proven the use case of being able to search for different OS type data. And again, all of this data in here is canned data, so you will get a lot more random selections of data in a real life environment. And then I guess another use case that you might want to explore is unmanaged devices. So people want to know if they've got systems on the network that are not known to most of their systems. What we're going to have to use here is a good adapter source for network data. So first thing we want to do is we want to say, well, show me the systems that just exist in one adapter. Okay, so we've got over 3,624 devices that just exist to one adapter. And you can see, now that we've got the full OS string, we can see all the various different kind of versions of Linux here in this particular column. But what we also want to do is maybe isolate this to a particular adapter source. Now, a NAC is a good adapter source for network data. Meraki could be a good adapter for network data. So let's have a look. What only exists to Cisco and Meraki? And then here we can see we have some what appears to be some Android phones. So this is a way of showing what systems only are known to Meraki. Let's have a look at what's only known to Forescout. We've got a few more systems there. And then, of course, what we would normally do as part of this investigation is, we want to try and start filtering out some of that data. And again, one of the things that we would use is this network manufacturers column. Now, unfortunately, this is a little annoying with this particular data set, is that they all appear to be Intel manufacturer network cards. Now, of course, in a real environment, you'd have an awful lot of variance in this data, so you could actually start to filter out. You could actually say, well, show me only the systems that are not Intel. So let's find the Intel ones first. Okay, so here's our Intel ones. If we want to filter out the Intel ones, we hit not there. Of course, like I said, they're all Intel systems, but that's how you would filter out the known good, because you want to really identify and pin down the known bad in your data set. That's a quick way of doing unmanaged. And then, of course, you've got the whole kind of incident response type methodology, right? You might have somebody sat in the SOC and all they've been given is an IP address, and maybe a log entry. And so what we probably want to go and do is pull out a particular IP address. Just so happens I looked at this one earlier. So you could just enter in an IP address. And of course, in a SOC, you might actually want to give these particular people in the SOC access to the API, so they can actually use an API client to retrieve this data. And so, the person in the SOC, they want to go and have a look at what is this particular IP address. They can see all the various different adapters that know something about this particular system. And each of these adapters is giving us, some interesting data. And of course, what we're doing is we're pinning together these adapters using things like MAC address, host name, serial number, unique identifiers. Obviously, trying to avoid where we can using IP address to pin together these different adapters. So we can now show various different data bits that are associated with the adapter for this particular device, and then you can also show how this data is aggregated and pulled together under one unified umbrella. And of course, you should really mention here that all of these different data points are queryable. Okay, so where we do have vulnerability data, you obviously want to display how different bits of software is vulnerable. So not only have we found a particular IP address just by entering in the IP address, we could of course entered in its host name. You could have also have entered into here a person's email address. Okay, so we could just said, well, Beltran demo.local. Let's see if we can find anything associated with this particular person. And again, so we do find a device associated with this particular person, just using their email address. Okay, so we do actually have this concept of associated users or last used users. So that's where we've pulled that from. So that's just an interesting kind of use case for just going querying for certain data. But just going back to the vulnerability data, I mean, you definitely want to be able to show where you have vulnerable software. Okay, so we'll do vulnerable software exists, and then we'll do, let's have a look at a particular CVE severity, for example. So what of my systems have a CVE severity of critical? I have 160 systems. Now, are any of those systems not running my endpoint agent? And we do have 4 systems, so that could be a good query for you to use in your demonstrations. So again, use that kind of data that's available to you. What you also might even want to do is take a look at installed software. Okay, so what we can do here is actually we can do a complex query to look at installed software. So show me all my systems that have installed software of Chrome, for example. Show me all my systems with a Chrome browser. All right, and then what we could do is let's go and pick on one. So we're going to aggregated, going to install software. Let's go and look at this Chrome version. Let's go and copy that. We're going to use that in the query. So we've got to query tool again. We're going to add another line. We're going to say software version contains. Okay, so I have there all my system is using this particular version of 80 of Chrome, but what systems are not running that particular version, that particular browser rather. So as you can see, how to kind of start to look at your data and inquire about what's installed. You could even do looking for installed software around Microsoft Office, for example, EPO versions. You can actually start to extract some of these agent versions here as well. Now, I did start to put these on the dashboard. Unfortunately, we don't have a use a lot of variety of agent versions. We have different breakdown here in terms of Chrome versions that I split out. But again, feel free to populate this user dashboard or create another one. And then I guess finally, as a kind of just as a kind of a brief run through, you probably want to also show people how you can delve into user data, right? So you might not just have Active Directory as a user adapter. You might have HR systems. You may have single sign-on systems. Other AWS user data in here, for example. But really, what you want to be able to do is show where you might have some policy gaps. So, do we have some admins? Yes, we do. We have some domain admins in this data. We have 140. But do we have any domain admins with some crazy password policies? We do. We have one user here, Paula Singleton, that is a domain admin that has a password set to never expire. Do we also want to maybe go and have a look at, is password not required? We don't have any users with password not required, but again, we're just delving into what is available with this data. But if we go back into the domain admins, we can see this is the AD data that you can start to query. Obviously, one of the things you'd want to go and do is you want to say, well, is my account disabled? So we probably want to make sure that that filter is already in there, because if there are domain admins and they're disabled, it's maybe not as interesting, but still same number, account disabled equals false. So yeah, that's just a very quick run through and the types of things that I would show in a demo using your data. And of course, we've not even touched on the enforcement center. You would also absolutely want to look at saved queries. I did save a couple here for you. So here's one to show Chrome that's installed. You would also want to show how saved queries can be used to go backwards in time. Okay, so show me what this saved query would have presented me, back on the 1st of June. So you can use that snapshot capability of the database. So I'd absolutely want to show that. You'd absolutely want to talk about the enforcement center. So being able to use those saved queries to trigger enforcements. So here you'd say, using my saved query, let's do Chrome installed as an example. At every discovery cycle, when there's changes, the new things that are added, I want to go and kick off an action. I want to go and be able to notify something or someone. I want to be able to maybe create a ticket of some description in their ticketing system. And again, talk about this as an extensible framework. This is a framework that we can update and enhance for customers as well, free of charge. We might want to enrich that data. We might want to go and add those IPs in for a vulnerability scan the next time we do a vulnerability scan. If we have a credential, we might want to go and run a command of some description or a batch file or whatever, shell script on those systems. We might want to go and isolate it in their EDR of choice. And again, don't be put off if your EDR isn't in here. We might want to go and make a change to ServiceNow or to Joel. So where they have a CMDB, we might be taking CMDB data into the system, but then when we find some data that's incorrect, we might want to go and update that data in that CMDB as well. There's other actions in here, again, that you'd want to explore with the customer, just to show them that not only can we find interesting data once we've plugged in all of their adapters, we can also do something about those risks that they've identified in their environment. So have a play around with the data. I've just recorded this just off the cuff. I'm sure I could probably improve upon this, but here's a good starting point. Basically just to give you a key set of activities and things that you should be thinking about when you're using your demo system. So hopefully that was useful, and let me know if I can improve it. Thanks very much.